Aloha! This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I interviewed writer Erik Burnham. Now let's get started! I am here with superstar writer Erik Burnham. Erik, welcome to the show.
Well, hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for doing this interview. Now, Erik, before we begin, I just want to let our listeners know you wrote The Scarlet Spider-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the long-running Ghostbusters series, and, correct me if I'm wrong, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ghostbuster crossover miniseries.
Yep.
The new Transformers series, Transformers Beast Wars, that's currently out right now. You are the editor for your friend's book, The Raptor. And then, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Image Comic Hoax Hunters, blah, blah. Red Sonja, New Warriors, and the new Godzilla miniseries that is coming out today on April 21st called Godzilla Monsters and Protectors. Did I miss anything?
I think you got just about everything there. I mean, there was a couple of stragglers, but those were so far back, I don't blame you for missing them. You got all the important stuff.
Yes. Thank you very much. Before we start the interview, I just want to give a few mahalos or thank you in Hawaiians for people who made this interview possible. First off, I want to thank Tom Waltz, Creative Development Senior Editor at IDW. Also, Megan Brown, correct? She's one of the editors at IDW as well, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then also I want to give a big thank you to Toho Company. Toho owns the rights to the Godzilla franchise. Did you guys have to go through them to say okay to do any interviews and stuff like that?
Yeah, just to make sure that that they were okay with me doing some talking about the book. Yeah, we had to get that permission, which we didn't think they would say no, but it's always better safe than sorry.
Oh no, yes. First question: where can listeners follow you on social media?
Well, I'm most easily found on Twitter, and I just use my name, Erik Burnham, ErikBurnham. And there I'm on Instagram as well, and from those two places you can work around and find me just about everywhere else.
So I'm going to start off with your origin story. Where did you grow up?
I grew up when people say all over, that's how I grew up. My dad had a wanderlust and decided to move around a bunch just whenever he felt the urge. So I started in northern Minnesota in Bemidji, which is north of where I am now. Wound up before I graduated in high school in Texas, Arizona, Washington State, Alaska, and then it circled back around to Minnesota again.
Alaska. Where in Alaska?
Dillingham, which is on the west coast, Bristol Bay, just above the Aleutian chain.
Oh, okay. How long did you live in Alaska?
About a little over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
almost 3. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So was it pretty much like wilderness country out in that area?
Where I was, yeah, there was 25 miles of paved road. There was no like fast food restaurants or chains along those lines. So it was really enclosed. You had to fly a plane to get in or out of the town. I mean, you could have gotten there by boat as well if you had wanted to sail around. But for convenience sake, it was a plane to get in and out. Real bush country.
Because me and my wife, there have been a couple times we've been to Alaska, and of course, we've done the cruises and stuff. We also did the land tour to Denali. We were in Fairbanks and, of course, Anchorage. So, Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, submitted this question. What was your first comic book that you read?
Boy, it's tough to remember the first one that I read because my dad collected comics before I was born, and my grandpa had a lot just for, the grandkids coming over.
Yes.
But the one I remember best is when I was 5, well, maybe 4. There was a house fire, and the whole house went up. Everything went away. My grandpa gave me one of the comics from his stash, and it was an early Avengers annual. So that's the one that I remember and kind of stuck with me. It was my first possession after a fire.
Sorry to hear about that. Yeah.
Well,
Dad and your grandfather collected comics. Do they still have? Do you have any of those? Or?
No. All those ones outside of I have the tatters of the one that I was just mentioning, that Avengers annual. But everything else went up in that fire.
I'm sorry to hear
Yeah.
I hope everyone's okay.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, we just lost stuff, and you know, I mean, it just we rebounded pretty
Oh,
well. So yeah.
do you remember your first LCS that you visited?
Funny thing is, I've never really lived near a comic shop,
Mhm.
which is kind of a bummer. There are two, and that I like to visit. I came to them mostly after I was already in comics and going to conventions. There's a great one down in Roseville, Minnesota. That's the Source Comic and Games. I like going there. And then a friend of mine has a shop in Cedar Falls, Iowa called Limited Edition. It's a fantastic store, and it's a little strange because it's also a barber shop.
Yeah.
So barbershop slash comic shop. Started out as a barbershop, and he started bringing in some comics, and then the comic section just grew until he had, you know, a couple of barber chairs in the corner of a comic shop, and that's what it is now. And it's a fun place to go and visit.
That's a perfect setup. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, for kids that have to wait for their parents to get their haircut, or for a little kid needing to get a haircut, they can read comics either while they wait or while they sit in the barber chair.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's he's really turned it into a destination spot. It's a college town, and he just, you know, it works out real well for him. And it's a great shop in general. I was really impressed the first time I went there.
Are you collecting anything right now? Any comics? Any action figures?
Oh gosh, I'm not collecting anything specific. I grab things now if something catches my eye. So I guess I'm collecting miscellaneous, but you know, comics as far as it goes, it's tough to keep up with stuff because I have so many friends and I try to keep up with their work, which keeps me from keeping up with everything else I want to. Plus the work I do, it's funny. You find that once you start working in comics, you start reading them a lot less,
Mhm.
just because that's the way it goes, and it's a little bit embarrassing. But I do find good things as often as I can. Right now, it's basically a story of I've got so many friends coming out with great Kickstarters. I'm backing them, getting the books, and checking them out, and it's that's been fantastic. Some great stuff that way.
All right. So, what led you to work in comics?
Oh, well, losing my job at a radio station. That's kind of, here's the long story made short
Yes,
as I can. I worked at a radio station. I got laid off. And then I was a little over a year without a job. So I was hanging out on the internet, hanging out on comic book boards,
Mhm.
and learning what was going on with books. And of course, as comic fans do, there was a lot of complaints. This sucks. That sucks. I could do better than this. I could do better than that. During a group chat one night on the old AOL Instant Messenger, that conversation was playing out, and somebody said, "Hey, well, we should put our money where our mouth is."
Mhm.
And we did an anthology. The Shooting Star Comics anthology came out in late 2002. It was about 8 months after we decided to do one.
Mhm.
And that turned into a short-lived comic company. It closed basically because nobody had time for it after a few years, but we were about 6 years at Shooting Star Comics. And that publisher, our little publisher, we put out Tom Waltz's first work, which was
Mhm.
Children of the Grave.
Oh.
And we put that out as individual issues. That's how I met Tom.
Mhm.
Tom lives in San Diego and was talking with the people at IDW. They wanted to collect Children of the Grave in a trade. He got on real well with them, and eventually, when they needed another editor, he got a job there. And he asked me if I wanted to pitch for an anthology that he was working on. I did. I
Mhm.
got in on that, and then it just became, hey, would you like to write this? Would you like to write this? And it kind of snowballed into all of a sudden, that's all I'm doing is writing, and I love it.
That's pretty cool. Did you go to college? Did you major in, like English or creative writing or anything like that?
Oh no, none of my schooling had anything to do with comics or any type of any type of things that I do now. There was no schooling to back it up.
Oh, okay. Was it more like a self-taught thing of how to write, and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I always enjoyed writing. I wrote plays in high school. I wrote short stories after that, and through semi-original fanfic on the internet just because I didn't have anything else to do for a while when I moved to a new town. And it just, yeah, no, I just kind of fell into comics because Tom asked me to pitch for that anthology. So those many years ago.
No, but that's pretty cool that like in high school that you were writing plays, short stories. And the thing was, the main thing is that you still just continue to keep on writing.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty cool. All right. So Drew is asking another question. What was your first paid comic book job?
That was the one I just mentioned, the anthology, which was Gene Simmons' House of Horrors. It was a Tales for the Crypt kind of a thing that Gene Simmons was the host of, and yeah, I wrote and drew an 8-page horror story for that.
And I'm going to ask, did you meet Gene Simmons? Did
you know what? I never did. He was at the IDW booth when I went to my first San Diego Comic-Con, and I could have met him, but at the same time, I also heard that he had to get going, and he was, still meeting people. I'm like, you know what? I'll let him go. It's cool.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to hold anybody up.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, but that would have been pretty cool if you did meet him for at least a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that.
No.
All right. So I'm going to move on to your past works, like Ghostbusters, Spider-Man, Teenage Ninja Mutant Ninja Turtles. What was your first experience to the Ghostbusters?
First writing experience, or just first experience with the Ghostbusters?
That's first experience with the Ghostbusters. Whether you saw the movies.
Oh yeah, I was about 1986. I was visiting some relatives. We were over there having dinner, and they happened to have rented it, and they were in the middle of watching it. Their kids, I should say, my cousins, were in the middle of watching it, and I just sat down and got sucked into the story. And when it was done, I asked to rewind it and watch the part that I missed, and so I watched the movie at 1.5 times that night.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, it just grabbed me. And then the cartoon, the real Ghostbusters, came out not long after and solidified my my interest and love of the franchise.
How did you get the call to write Ghostbuster series?
Okay, well, that one was Tom became the editor of the Ghostbusters series in 2008, and immediately I called him and said, Tom, I really want to pitch for this. I love the Ghostbusters. Give me a chance. He said, here's what's going on. We have 2009 covered. We're going to be doing quarterly holiday themed specials.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you can send me a pitch now, and I can get it, pre-approved by Sony. And then after those holiday specials, we can revisit it.
Mm-hmm.
So they did the holiday specials, and instead of the thing that I had pitched, he said, would you like to just do the 2-issue Infestation miniseries? IDW was doing a crossover of their licensed properties that wasn't really a crossover, it just had a common theme running through them.
Mm-hmm.
So that they didn't have to try to figure out the legality of, at that time, of like Transformers with Ghostbusters with, Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
And he just, he asked if I would like to do that one. And, the answer was, of course, yes, absolutely. So that was January 2010 is when he asked me to do it. I wrote it in the summer. It came out in March of 2011. It had a great response, and such a great response, he asked if I would like to pitch an ongoing series, which, yeah. So I sat down and wrote out every idea I had, sent him like 15 pages worth of ideas, and we went from there.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And then when did you and, now I'm going to try to pronounce the Ghostbusters artist, Dan Schoening? Is that correct?
Schoening.
Schoening.
Yeah.
So when did you guys start to team up to do the Ghostbusters series?
We teamed up with the first issue of the ongoing. I worked with Kyle Hotz on the Infestation, and he wasn't available to do the ongoing. Mm-hmm. So Dan had done one of the aforementioned holiday one-shots. Tom liked working with him and decided to plug him in, and yeah, we've been working together ever since.
Just recently, because I picked up Ghostbusters 101, the trade. Everyone asked us to call, and I love it. I read chapter 1 or part 1, and like I said, I love it. I love I love your writing style. It drew me in because you have a love and respect for the character. When I hear like Venkman, I can hear Bill Murray's voice. And then, like, when I hear, like, Dr. Abby Yates, I can hear Melissa McCarthy as well. And it's pretty cool. And I love Dan's artwork as well, too. It's really great.
Yeah, no, he throws so much in there. He comes from an animation background, and you can tell when you look at his pages.
Yeah. Did you guys ever meet any of the Ghostbuster actors, whether it's the original from the original movie, the 2016, or any of the voice actors?
Oh, sure. We were at the Ghostbusters Fan Fest back in 2019. Dan has met Dan Aykroyd and a few of the others apart, but at that Fan Fest, we got to chat a little bit with Maurice LaMarche, who was Egon in the real Ghostbusters, and a couple of minutes we got to talk with William Atherton, who was Walter Peck, and that is he is just the sweetest guy, just a really nice guy. Yeah, that's it. And then at San Diego Comic-Con in 2017, we got to do a Q&A panel and have a little chat with Ivan Reitman. So
Oh my
that's who we got to meet. That's, yeah.
When you guys met William Atherton, who plays Walter Peck.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, he's the sweetest guy, but yet in Ghostbusters and in the first two Die Hard movies,
Mm-hmm.
it's a 360 from his character.
Oh yeah. In real life, just the exact opposite.
I'm going to keep moving on. So, what was your first exposure to Spider-Man? Whether it was in the
Oh yeah, no, that was Spider-Man. I had Spider-Man comics before that fire that I mentioned. I loved Spider-Man from Go, the cartoons. Just he looked cool, and I loved him.
Mhm.
I was reading the reprints of the old Ditko comics in the Marvel Tales, and I was reading the whatever current ones I could have. It didn't matter if it was Spider-Man on the cover. I would be just wrapped my attention just right on those pages wherever I found him, and it really didn't change. He's my favorite superhero character.
How did you get the writing job to write the Scarlet Spider-Man?
Well, that one was Chris Yost, who was writing Scarlet Spider. He was also working on the Thor sequel, The Dark World.
Oh.
And so his schedule was a little bit packed, and he had seen some of my Ghostbusters work online, got a kick out of it, and just reached out and asked if I might be interested in scripting the dialogue over his plots. And yes, absolutely. It was so it was entirely on Chris's on Chris's initiative that I ever got to work on a Marvel book.
How excited were you when you got that call?
Oh my goodness! You can't even know. I was just giggling to myself when I was typing "thwip" into Microsoft Word. I'm like, I can't! This is awesome! And even better, the first issue that I scripted for him also had Wolverine, so I got to type in "snicked" as well, and my inner child was just plotzing, giddy.
Okay, so we're gonna touch back on your love for Spider-Man later in the episode, in this interview. Okay? All right. What was your first exposure to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Well, that was the 1987 cartoon. I think that's what got most people, got the Turtles on most people's radar, was that cartoon. It was everywhere. It was a huge hit. And from there, I backtracked to some of the older Mirage comics and the Archie comics. And then it's just... it's a cool franchise. They can do so much with it. They've done hard sci-fi. They've gone off to space. They've gone to other dimensions. They've done the ninja stories. They've done comedy. They've done some really dark drama, really versatile stuff, which upon first hearing the concept, you might not necessarily think. But they're very versatile, and I enjoyed that and was excited when I got a chance to do some writing for them.
Then I'm going to ask, so how did the Ghostbusters Ninja Turtle crossover come about? How did that come about?
Well, Tom Waltz and I were both working on both properties to different degrees. Tom was the writer of the ongoing Ninja Turtle series, and he was the editor of Ghostbusters. I, of course, was writing Ghostbusters, and I did a couple of miniseries and one-shots for the for the Ninja Turtles series for the editor, Bobby Curnow. And we were at my first San Diego Comic-Con. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. We were sitting there talking and said, it would be fun if we crossed these two over. And we were talking about ideas and because there's two teams of 4 characters, and they both operate out of New York City, and the parallels were there, and it seemed like a fun idea. It took us gosh, I think 3 years to convince Nickelodeon and Sony to agree to do it. But once they were on board, it came together pretty quickly and went over well.
Oh, okay. I have to track that trade down, and I have to check that out. I really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it sounds like a lot of fun, and also too, the Ghostbusters trade that I picked up, the Ghostbusters 101, Everyone Answers the Call. There's a little reference to that too. That I guess there's that transporter door. And they made a mention, and I remember you made a mention of it, that of that they met some turtles or something like that.
Right. Well, the thing that we did with all of the Ghostbusters miniseries and the crossovers is we made sure that they all counted. So we might not be able to mention the Ninja Turtles directly because of, the legalities, but we would mention them in an offhand way, and it all happened. It all counted. It all made sense for the ongoing story. And yeah, we just built off everything, why waste it?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't put this question when I sent you the list of questions. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask one more question. The Transformers. What was your first exposure to the Transformers?
Oh boy, I was collecting or trying to collect as many of them as I could back in the 80s when it came out. My brother had G.I. Joe. I had Transformers and Masters of the Universe. And those were our toy things. And it was, they were just cool. I mean, they were robots that turned into other things. It was just, it was a puzzle and a toy. I loved it. And, like I said, the cartoon being entertaining to me at the time didn't hurt either.
And then, now, correct me if I'm wrong, Transformers Beast Wars, is that your first writing assignment for Transformers?
No, I did a Transformers and Ghostbusters crossover in 2019. Yeah, that was the first thing that I did with Transformers, and that was because Hasbro made a Ecto-1 Transformer, and because they decided to do the toy, we said, well, we should do a comic with that. That'd be fun. And that's literally how it came together. But that was the first time I got to do Transformers, and yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And then before I move on to the Godzilla miniseries, do you have any of your Transformers from the 1980s? Do you still have anything from that?
Oh boy, they are probably, if they're still in one piece, they'd probably be in storage somewhere at my parents' house. I would think that I still have Grimlock. That's the one I'm pretty sure that I still have, and I know he's not in one piece, but I don't think he was tossed.
Okay. All right. So Eric, I'm sorry. I'm going to move along. I'm going to move on to Godzilla Monsters and Protectors, the miniseries. So
sure.
what was your first exposure to Godzilla?
Okay, well, Godzilla was just kind of in pop culture, and I was aware of him. But the first time that I was just super excited was around about to 1986. I remember seeing the commercials for Godzilla 1985. It was coming on TV. It was the Sunday night movie. I'm like, this is great. This is Godzilla. It's going to be on TV. I can watch it. I'm so excited. And I mean, just the commercials had me hyped up. And I was too young to realize that there wasn't as much Godzilla in the Godzilla movies. So I'm watching. I'm getting tired because it's late. I'm like, when's Godzilla gonna show up? But he did. And it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. But that was just the excitement, the hype of those commercials. I was so excited for it.
And then I'm going to ask you. So what did you like about Godzilla, or what drew you to Godzilla?
I mean, he's a nuclear dinosaur. What more do you need?
Yeah. Okay.
That's just no. He's a giant monster. He spits atomic fire. He knocks over buildings. He fights other monsters. This is all cool stuff.
Yes, no, it is. And I'm gonna say, because it's the same thing. Because when I first saw Godzilla, it's the same thing. It was just a huge dinosaur. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And he's destroying. It's kind of bad for me to say, but he's destroying a city. This is pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, it's not real destruction, so that can be fun.
Yes, that is true. All right. So, have you seen all the Godzilla movies?
Not all of them. I've seen a good chunk. So yeah.
And then let's see. I'm gonna ask. Let's see. Have you seen Godzilla versus Kong?
I have. I watched it when it hit on HBO Max, and then I actually just saw it in the theater last night.
Oh my God.
It was so great in the theater with those big thumping speakers whenever the Godzilla theme started. Wah, wah, I'm just like, yeah, this is great. And I had the theater completely to myself, so it was even better.
Ah, that is pretty awesome. That really is. And I mean, not only to have the theater to yourself, but to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, it was worth seeing on the big screen. Absolutely.
Okay. Um, what were your thoughts on it?
Oh boy, I mean, it had everything I wanted. It had Godzilla, it had King Kong, and they fought. And then they, like in a good comic book style crossover, they found somebody else to fight, and they parted on good terms. I'm spoiling the movie for those who haven't seen it, but I mean, I don't think it's really a surprise. They fought somebody else, and nobody wants to see either one of these two kill each other, and obviously that's not what happened. But I mean, it was it turned me into a 10-year-old. I was giddy watching it.
Okay. Now, out of the Godzilla movies that you have seen, what was your favorite? Do you have a favorite Godzilla movie, or do you have a couple of favorite Godzilla movies?
Oh yeah. No, I do. I mentioned this before on on the Geek History lesson. We were talking about this. Yeah, we chatted about that. With Jason and Ashley, I love the original, the Japanese version, not the version with Raymond Burr of the first 1954 movie. And the first time I saw it uncut and subtitled and all this stuff, I was just kind of bowled over when they were directly referencing the atomic bomb, and then I realized, oh yeah, that was only 10 years before. Holy cow. It kind of shook me a little bit because I wasn't expecting it. And I mean, it was played for drama. Sure, they had the the nuclear dinosaur walking around, but it was a fairly serious drama for a monster movie. And it was engrossing. And so was its sequel, Godzilla Raids Again. They started to get progressively a little weirder, a little sillier. And the thing I kind of like about them is all of them is here's something weird. Here's the explanation for something weird. It might not make sense, but it's the explanation. And everybody's just like, cool, we're going with that. And that's fantastic. I mean, it's just, aliens show up in Godzilla. They're aliens. They're invading the Earth. Well, that makes sense. Of course. Why wouldn't they be? So I mean, I like that. It's earnest, it's straightforward, and yeah, I love those two. Though those were my favorite.
And before I continue on, and thank you for reminding me that listeners, if you guys get a chance, check out Geek History Lesson Podcast, episode 361. It came out on just came out recently, March 29th. And the title is Godzilla with Erik Burnham. Okay. Let's see. And what? One thing I want to point out to you because I listened to that episode, I thought it was great that you said that the 1998 Godzilla movie was like a remake of The Beast from 20,000 Phantoms.
Oh yeah, no, that was my brother who pointed that out to me, and as soon as he said it, I'm like, son of a gun. It kind of is. It really does. It really does fit that mold pretty well.
No, because I'm gonna say, because when I first saw that Godzilla movie in the theaters when it first came out, I'm gonna say I kept going. This all looks familiar. It doesn't feel like a Godzilla movie, but I've seen this movie before. And then when I listened to the Geek History Lesson podcast that you were on, and you mentioned that, then I'm like, that's right, because I remember seeing The Beast from 20,000 Phantoms. What was it, when I played played on TV back in the 70s? Because I remember that old movie, The Beast from 20,000 Phantoms, is a very good movie as well. But yeah, so okay. Have you read any of the Marvel Godzilla comics?
Yes and no. I know that I read them at one point because I clearly remember, Dum Dum Dugan chasing after Godzilla,
Yes.
but it's been so long, I could not remember anything more than that. So if you put them in front of me now, I might remember. Oh, I remember this panel, but
Yeah.
I couldn't do it without without like a mental aid.
No, no.
So yeah, it's been so far back in my memory, it might well never have happened.
No, but that's pretty cool that you remember Dum Dum Dugan, because it's like,
Mhm.
for me it's like, because I remember reading the comics the same thing, and it's like, that's right, Dum Dum was the only one that was always chasing after him,
Mhm.
Godzilla. Um, and then also I remember the Red Ronin appeared, that huge giant mecha robot thing that first appeared in Avengers.
Oh.
Also, I think fought Godzilla as well too. So, um, and then, did you ever read the Art Adams Godzilla story from Dark Horse?
Again, yeah, I know I did because that art was too pretty to ignore, but it was long enough ago that I couldn't tell you the story off the top of my head. But I mean, Arthur Adams and any kind of a monster, I'm going to be there for that story.
Mhm. Now, while growing up, or even now, did you collect any of the Godzilla monster action figures?
I'm tempted when I see them on the shelves because they're so cool looking, but I don't have any space to display them right now, which
Mhm.
I'm just like, I don't want to have it sitting in a box in a closet. That's not cool. The only Godzilla thing that I have is a little tiny, little 2-inch tall PVC. It's not a Hero Clicks, but it's like roughly that same size, a little base. This is something that my brother gave me. When he heard that I was going to be writing some Godzilla, and I like it. It's small enough that I can find space for it. It's right on top of my desktop tower, looking down at me, spitting the flames. So
That's pretty cool. That really is.
mm,
Uh, okay, so can you explain to our listeners, how did you get this awesome assignment, the writing assignment for this Godzilla miniseries?
boy, this was just straight up Tom Waltz saying, "Hey, would you like to pitch Godzilla?" I wish it was more complicated than that, but
Oh,
it was just like, yeah, no. IDW is going to be doing several different things with Godzilla. They're going to have several different projects.
wow. Mhm.
Ours was just the first one that happened to come out, and it was just he was like, we're going to do some Godzilla. It's going to be this particular series I want to pitch for is going to be middle grade. It's going to be aimed at kids, so you can use some humor in it,
Mhm.
and you can play Godzilla straight, which nobody wants Godzilla to be a buffoon, but we just you can do that. So they had ideas that they wanted me to incorporate. Toho had some ideas that they were looking for, but yeah, no, it just happened to be. He asked if I was interested. I was, and everybody liked the stuff that I wound up coming up with. So it
Now,
all just kind of fortuitously came together.
oh, okay. I'm not looking for any spoilers, but can you at least just give a gist of the story to our listeners?
Okay. Um, well, they were looking for an environmental angle, so and since the first issue is out, Godzilla's a little irritated about a new form of, in theory, renewable energy, but it's messing with the natural balance. So he's not happy and is attacking the stations that produce this energy. Um, and I guess the only other thing I can say, since the cover has been released and it's on Comixology and people can see it, it's not a spoiler.
Mhm.
The big bad guy that was suggested to throw in and be used was Biolante,
Yes.
and that's that. So that's where we're going to have Godzilla fighting. And this was the rough thing for this one was the movie was when I was putting this together was not available. Godzilla versus Biolante. I couldn't find it anywhere. It's one of those. I'm like, well, I'm not going to spend $60 on this thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm just going to have to read some wikis and hope.
Hmm.
But no, there's resources, there's people I can ask. I was it came together, but I was a little frustrated that I couldn't actually watch the movie and figure out what was going on from that.
Okay. Okay, so to listeners, I've already read the first issue on Comixology. I love it. I love the artwork. I also love the main character now. Cedric is correct me if I'm wrong, is a middle schooler.
Yes.
Okay.
We want to keep him roughly middle school age, not quite high school.
Okay. But I love the story. It was a fun story. The cool thing I loved about Cedric is that him and his mom is from Hawaii.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. So I have to. I'm sorry. I'm going off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys come up with that angle?
Well, the general idea was that it was going to take place in Tokyo, in the American school there. And we kind of wanted to have one of the kids to be Japanese, or at least half Japanese.
Yes.
And so Cedric became that. But where, if he's part American, where would we have him be from? We would have him be from, someplace in the east of the country. Would have him be from the West Coast, California or Washington. And then it's just like, why not Hawaii? That's, I mean, you know better than I do. It's a pretty diverse state. It would make a lot of sense. Let's do that. And it was fun.
But I'm going to say, when I read that, I was like, it's so cool. It's just, I mean, Erik, thank you for doing that. That is so cool.
Sure.
Okay. Now, did you request Dan, your artist and partner in crime from the Ghostbusters series, to do this miniseries?
This was another one where Tom was like, it'd be fun to have Dan draw something new and something fun with big monsters. And so, I mean, I would have asked for Dan, but I didn't have to. It just Dan and Luis. I can't forget Luis Antonio Delgado. He's the one who does the colors, and Dan and him are kind of like one entity at this point. It's gorgeous.
Okay, all right. Now, before I continue on with your work relationship with you and Dan. Now, Drew submitted this question. So, do you give a full script to your artists or anyone that you're working with, whether it's Dan or
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, if it was working with Dan, strictly speaking, I wouldn't have to, because he is so good about just getting what I'm going for. But we're working with licensed products, and everything has to be approved before they get to Dan. So I do have to write a full script anyway, because they have to see what I'm going for, and they have to understand it, and approve it and say yes to this, no to this, change this, we love this, we hate this, whatever. So yeah, anybody's going to get a full script, so long as I'm writing a licensed property, just because that's the process.
Okay. All right. And then the Godzilla in this miniseries, did you and Dan talk about which movie version of Godzilla you guys wanted to use for this miniseries?
We didn't talk about what movie version. We more just we're looking for the right look, and I made a couple of suggestions what I liked, and he had a couple of suggestions, and then it all came down to Toho saying, no, less this, smaller this, and they make the back fins larger, and they had their input. So they molded this into the look that they wanted from Dan and the look that they wanted for a middle grade book. It was just kind of everybody had their input. So it wasn't a specific exactly like this movie version or exactly like that. There were some tweaks that might not even be noticeable to the average fan, but yeah, no. So it just everything is molded in licensed work.
Okay, all right. And then let's see. Now I've listened to another podcast that actually you and Tom Waltz, you guys did a panel, an IDW panel for Ghostbusters, and that podcast I listened to was Nerdy Show Podcast, crossing over with IDW's Erik Burnham and Tom Waltz. Now, in that panel, there are times when Tom had to tell Dan, nope, you can't do this. No, Dan, you got to adjust this, because Dan loves to put Easter eggs in his artwork. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. He sure does. And we made sure that there are no Easter eggs. No Easter eggs in Godzilla. We almost had one.
Uh-huh.
We almost had one Easter egg, and what it was going to be is you see the little action figure
Yeah.
that's on the first page in all the previews. It's a little Mexican wrestler looking guy. That was
Yeah.
originally going to be a Jet Jaguar.
Oh my God.
So we were going to do that, and what basically came down is, well, don't put Jet Jaguar here, because if you ever wanted to use him in the future, if we did some more miniseries and had some more fun with this, why tie your hands and keep yourself from using Jet Jaguar? So yeah, we took him out just in case the opportunity ever presented itself in the future to use him.
Okay. Now some of the little Easter eggs that Dan has done in the past, and I'm just pointing back to the Ghostbusters 101 trade. In chapter 2, there's a bunch of guys on the golf course, and all of a sudden, the golf ball freezes in midair, and you see this ghostly figure catches the ball. And I'm kind of going, this looks a little reference to Scrooge.
I am not able to confirm or deny any resemblance to the character in Scrooge.
It's me.
But,
I'm just being subjective.
Oh yes, completely subjective. But I mean, there may be some suggestiveness there.
And then I'm gonna now. When I was reading the issue 1 of the Godzilla miniseries last night, I saw in the background, and I can't remember what panel it was, but there was a little. It was either on the YouTube thing or the panel, but I saw that there was a little poster for Planet X.
Yes.
Now,
well, Planet X is a famous little bit and bob from the Godzilla universe, and I'm not saying that it's an Easter egg. I'm not saying that it's a hint at the future, but I'm not going to say it's not either.
No, it's just I'm just pointing out a poster saying Planet X. It could refer to the X-Men.
Absolutely. There we go. So yes, Planet X was an intentional little nod to the history of Godzilla, though.
Okay, all right. Let's see. So now, since you work on a lot of franchise properties, Ghostbusters, Teenage Ninja Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, and of course Godzilla, does it give you freedom to write stories because you know what the boundaries are?
Well, yeah, usually. You know what you can do and can't do. That makes it easy to know where you can start with your story. You throw out the ideas, and they say yes to this, no to that. Maybe to this, can you clarify? Or maybe to this, if you do it this way, and they throw some suggestions. 99% of the time when you get a note from a licensor, it's a good note, and it makes everything look better, and it makes me look good, it makes the artist look good, and it's good stuff. The other 1% of the time, it's not bad, but I chafe a little bit. There's always going to be the one note that go, well, why this?
Yeah.
But but I mean, that's that happens so rarely to me, and it certainly hasn't happened with Toho. They just it's been I've had an easier time than some. I'll put it that way. It's been good. Yeah, no, knowing not to go too far in any one direction, and the rough boundaries I'm at, and then we go from there. So it's been pretty easy for me. I can't say that it's been easy for everybody, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And then, are some of your writer friends, artists, are they jealous that you're working on a Godzilla miniseries?
Oh yes, yeah. Why him? Why not me? Got Godzilla tattooed on my back. Well, no, not that bad. But there's definitely a couple of I definitely got a couple of emails that basically came out to you, jerk. Maybe the language was a little stronger than you, jerk, but it was all in fun.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. That's pretty good, but yeah, that's pretty good. All right. So okay, since we're talking about Godzilla. I'm going to go to another I'm going to point to another kaiju property. Have you seen any of the Gamera movies?
I have. I watched them. I mean, again, this was a while back. Watching them when they were popping up on TV back in the '80s, and I also saw them. This is probably not as good to admit. The Mystery Science Theater versions of of those, but yeah, no, I remember Gamera. Yeah,
Okay. All
I
right.
mean it's a turtle who can fly, for crying out loud. This is awesome.
So, and just for our listeners, so Gamera, yeah, as Eric said, it's a, Gamera's a turtle that could fly. Gamera also breathes fire. Basically, Gamera was a competitor to Godzilla, and the first Gamera movie came out in 1965, created by um, Yon- Yonejiro Saito, and it's owned by the Dai Film Company. Um, Came out, there was 12 movies that came out. Um, to me, the best of the Gamera series is Gamera Guard. And now this one came out between 1995 to 1991. The trilogy, the Gamera trilogy, Gamera Guardian of the Universe, Gamera 2 Attack of Legion, um, Gamera 3 Revenge of Isis. Now that third movie, I remember renting that. It left on a cliffhanger, and then that was it. There was no follow-up movie after that. And it was just, oh. But so if listeners want to check out the Gamera movies, the ones from 1995 to 1991, I think are considered the best. So, okay. So my next question: have you toyed with the idea of Godzilla versus Gamera?
Not exactly. I mean, it's the kind of thing that occurs, but I mean, for this one, we were pretty set with what we were going to do before I wrote a word, and there's other stuff. Obviously, I think fans would want to see probably before Gamera. I think Gitara.
Yeah.
We need him first before you
Yes.
go on, but I honestly I don't know. I'd have to ask, and before I got too invested and excited and coming up with ideas, I'd have to ask, is this even possible? And they might say yes, and they might say no.
Yeah.
Just for the simple reason that, I mean, sometimes a licensor will say no just because it's possible, but they don't like the idea, or they don't want to do it, or they're not interested. The person who has the power to say yes or no might just not be interested, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly don't know. I mean, if it was ever possible,
Uh-huh.
we'd have to see.
Yeah. Okay.
But it'd be something fun to see, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay. Now let me ask this next question: would it be something fun to see if you see a Godzilla versus a Transformer?
Boy, that'd be interesting. See, now that I was thinking about that when you sent me some of the pregame questions, and all I'm thinking is, now how does Megatron get a hold of Mechagodzilla, and what kind of fun would that have?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's all I'm thinking is somehow the bad guys get a hold of Mechagodzilla, and it goes south from there. And I mean, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but now I kind of want it to, just
Yeah.
because just that one stupid visual, that one idea, and there's nothing else. But now I just want to see, he's still tiny compared to Mechagodzilla, just tooling around in the driver's seat, laughing and blowing stuff up.
Oh my God. I didn't think about that part, but that's pretty cool because all I could think of was like, because I saw previews of the current Mechagodzilla. I was like, wow, wouldn't that be pretty neat if he was a Transformer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So any last words about the Godzilla series?
Well, it was a blast to do. I hope that we continue to do more. We have ideas for a second one. If this one does well enough and everybody's happy, we have some ideas for the second one. I've been done with it for a while. I wrote this one pretty fast. It came together pretty quickly. I mean, as far as sometimes scripts take the full month to write, depending on my schedule. But I'm all done. Dan is cruising towards the finish line of the miniseries as well. So hopefully we'll be able to pick up the baton and do it again. Because it's been a blast. It's been fun, and I'm hoping that the fun that I'm talking about is the audience can pick it up. I'm really hoping that the target audience, the middle grade audience, likes it. Kids, I hope they get into it, because you'll want to get the kids interested, because then your audience keeps growing, and continues.
So, but the other thing too, what I liked about I keep referring back to reading issue 1, is that also too. It's like, but I also, because I'm an adult and I also enjoyed it too as well. It was,
Yeah.
it was fun, So it's,
Well, I mean, the idea that we had is, I mean, there's the target audience, but we don't want to make it. We want it to be accessible to everybody. Younger than middle grade. There's nothing that should be too offensive for that. If they're a precocious 7-year-old, or somebody who grew up with Godzilla and remembers the silliness of some of the movies, or the the drama of some of the movies, we want to have something for them as well. Now, it's not going to be doom and gloom, R-rated, no humor type of adult, but it will be. If you go back and look, there's some silly stuff in those old movies, and it's wonderful. And that's what we tried to the spirit we tried to capture. This many fans, I won't say most, but became fans of Godzilla when they were about 10, 12 years old, from the movies that were running on TV.
yes.
And I'm not going to say most, but I mean, that's a good chunk of where people I've talked to have seen Godzilla first. So, that's what we're trying to get, that same vibe and that same audience.
Okay. Now I'm going to continue to move on. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, you and your friends started a podcast. It is called the Friendly Neighborhood Webhead Podcast.
Yes.
How did that come about?
I was talking with my friend Ethan Colchamero, who is the co-host of the podcast, and we were talking about just writing up. I should say, about writing up observations about the Spider-Man movies, just for something to do. And he said, "Well, we should do it as a podcast. We could just talk about it." Light bulb. And of course, with the pandemic, everybody in their neighbor has come up with a podcast who didn't already have one. So I mean, it was just it was the perfect thing to do. And we had some technical difficulties that put us on hiatus for a while, but we did get through the Tobey Maguire trilogy. We got through Amazing Spider-Man, and we got through 3/4 of Amazing Spider-Man 2. We recorded the last bit, and Ethan was going to be editing that. We trade back and forth on the editing duties, and that's when the technical difficulties happened, and some stuff that he had to deal with as well. So we took a little bit of a break. We did the Civil War episode. Tom Holland and Captain America. We that's the last one was up. But we did record one a couple of nights ago. Just a a state of the podcast, a hiatus thing, talking that we'll be back soon, jumping into the MCU proper and Tom Holland. It's basically us just talking about the Spider-Man movies. Going, we break it up into 4 episodes. We discuss the movie. We talk about Easter eggs and our feelings and thoughts, and we just have a good time talking Spider-Man. And it's just that simple.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Favorite Spider-Man movie?
Sentimental favorite's always going to be the original 2002 Tobey Maguire one, because that one was the first one that I saw Spider-Man moving on screen, and like a baby bird, I imprinted on it. That there were other ones that had action scenes that were better, or I think the way we put it was, Tobey Maguire had a Peter Parker that we liked, and Andrew Garfield was had a good handle on the quippy Spider-Man, because Tobey Maguire didn't do a whole lot of joking. And Tom Holland is just kind of the earnestness of the character, the am I doing everything right? Am I not doing something wrong? Oh gosh, that anxiety and neurosis and just trying to do the right thing. Now, if you put all 3 of those versions together, you have the Spider-Man we know from the comics.
Oh yes. I know, and I'm jumping. I know. I think all of us have read through the internet that we might be seeing all 3 Spider-Mans in the next movie. Who knows?
I think that it's a foregone conclusion. I'm pretty sure that that's what's going to happen. But we talk a little bit about that on our hiatus thing, about what we've heard and what we want to see, and I'm 90% sure that they just couldn't keep this. The pandemic, if the movie had come out when it was supposed to, it might have they might have been able to keep it under wraps. But with all the extra lead time that quarantine has added on, they just weren't able to keep it safe and secret.
All right. So, all right, Eric, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Drew submitted this question. Where do you see the comic industry going in 2021?
Man, it is impossible to predict because I had just read that print book sales were up 20-30% in the first quarter of 2021. If print sales are up, then I would assume that at least trade sales are up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard from some of my image creator friends that the quarantine has been pretty good for their business statements. So more people sitting around without stuff to do, more people reading, more
Mm-hmm.
buying books. But like I said, it's tough to say. There's been so much change already with Marvel and DC leaving Diamond Distributors,
Yes.
and there are several new publishers with new initiatives and new publishing ideas. TKO comes to mind with the way they publish their books. You can have the 6 issues. You can have it as a trade. You can get it in a little box set. Just different ideas like that. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's been a creative and no, let me say that in a different way. Creatively, I don't think we've ever been better, and we're getting better.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that just continues to translate to more people checking it out.
Okay.
So I'm going to be optimistic and positive about it. I think things are going to at least stay as they are, if not get better.
Okay. No, thank you very much for that answer. Now, where do you see yourself professionally in a year from now?
Well, hopefully, hopefully still working. No, I don't know. I have a couple of things that I have pitched and they're looking at, and if those things go through, I know what I'll be doing next year. But other than that, I'm hoping to continue on as I have, and because I love what I do.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Now I'm going to go into the fun questions, and then we'll start wrapping up. So, what comics are you? Actually, let me rephrase this. What Kickstarters are you reading, and would you like to promote to our listeners?
Okay, there's some that I just backed and I'm waiting on. There's Alex Segura and company have put together The Dusk. That I think today was the last day, and it's like a throwback to like the kind of Batman the Animated Series style storytelling and that Art Deco. It looks good. I'm looking forward to that. Jason and Ashley of the Geek History Lesson podcast, they have Jupiter Jet. They have 2 books out. I got Jupiter Jet 2 a few months back and enjoyed that immensely. Gosh, there was there was a couple. Now I've got the ones going in my head where I got to see some previews, and they're not technically out on Kickstarter yet, and I'm confusing them with the ones. But my friend Erica Schultz has one. I read the first bit of the Kickstarter coming up for an action series called Deadly Bouquet, and that's a lot of fun. But I also want to suggest Kyle Stark's Old Head, which is a basketball player versus Dracula. And Kyle Starks and my friend Erica Henderson worked on Assassin Nation a couple years ago. That was an Image book. That was fantastic. It's just, like 90s B-movie action. And finally, just because, Train of Thought with Erica Henderson, her and Alex DeCampi worked on a book called Dracula, Mother Effer. Oh, yes. And that was also just, Erica upped her game on the art, and it was a fun grindhouse book. So all these things are popping into my train of thought. I've read more than I thought, but like I said, when you're working in comics and you have so many people making comics as friends, mm-hmm. boy, it gets tough to keep up with their personal stuff, Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but those ones are all good ones to look into here. And the Deadly Bouquet Kickstarter. That one that I got a preview that hasn't launched yet, but it's one to look into.
Okay, all right. I know last year 2020, conventions were basically shut down due to the pandemic. But I'm going to ask this question: what was your best convention moment or moments?
Oh boy, yeah, it's tough. I've met so many great people, comic creators and fans at conventions, and it's just been a joy. One of the let's see, train of thought. A couple of folks who started out at San Diego bringing Ghostbusters books up to me to sign. I got to be good friends with them, and in 2018, I attended their wedding.
Wow.
That was fantastic. Yeah, that was great. That's an odd way of going, but they become very good friends, and they're lovely people. And I'll keep their name out of it so they don't yell at me.
Oh no!
But
Yeah.
and then just the aforementioned Ghostbusters panel at San Diego with Ivan Reitman, and just the packed crowd and people, cheering some of the stuff that he was talking about, and just having that energy in the room. That was a great moment. Or walking to the secret back alleys of San Diego and almost running into David Tennant, who was there to announce DuckTales, and I'm just like, oh, geez. I told a friend of mine about that. She goes, "You almost touched him? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you?" She was mad at me for not running into the man.
But I only can imagine, like you said, in these, those secret alleys. It's like as soon as you pass them, you're going, "That was David Tennant," and then he's already like 10 feet away already, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had the weirdest, almost moments at San Diego. When the Winter Soldier was about to come out.
Yes.
I was just taking a break away from the booth. I was standing off the sides. The door opens. Hey, that looks like Samuel L. Jackson. Oh wait, it is. So the whole cast just walks right past me, and and I was so tired at that point. It took me a minute to even register who it was.
That's so cool that you saw him in
Yeah.
person.
I mean, it was a whole. It was Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan and the whole nine. It was, yeah.
That is awesome. That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, they just walked in front of me. I wish it was more cool than that, but I think the fact was that it was a surprise.
All right. So, have you visited Hawaii?
I wish I had, but no, I've never been out that far.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
On my list.
All right. Now, what is your favorite takeout place, in your city or town?
Oh boy, let's see. There is a pizza place, a local pizza place called Rafferty's that I love them. I was thinking of a couple other ones, but I realized sadly that they decided to close up during the pandemic, and so I can't talk about them anymore. But yeah, Rafferty's, as far as local stuff, they have some interesting pizzas, and I enjoy going there. Drive a little bit further down to where my brother lives is a great sushi place called Sake Sushi that I really love going to whenever I'm down there. And there's Indian restaurant, Thai restaurant right in the same block. So I mean, I'm covered for good food when I go down to my brother's. But yeah, up here the pizza place is what I'd have to go with.
Okay. All right. So if and when you ever do visit Hawaii, make sure you have to hit up one of our sushi bars or Thai restaurants down here.
Oh no, I've many friends have gone. I've got a list of stuff that I need to try. The minute I can get out there, I'm excited to just eat way too much. Beach? What? No, food.
All right. Can you promote your social media sites again?
Sure. Twitter.com. I am at Erik Burnham, and that's ErikBurnham. Burnham. There we go, like setting a pig on fire. I have the same handle at Instagram, and from either of those places, you can connect to my website, which is spelled differently, or anything else that I'm at very easily.
Okay. All right. So again, listeners, Godzilla Monsters and Protectors #1 is out in stores. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Transformers Beast Wars #3, is it out right now?
It did. It came out at the beginning of the month. We're about 2 weeks away from #4 as we talk.
Okay. All right. So, Erik, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, sir.
Until next time, guys, aloha.
Hello, everybody.
That was my interview with writer Erik Burnham, the writer of IDW's Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors. Now, issue number 1 is out in stores right now, and Erik is also currently writing IDW's Transformers Beast Wars. Now, the current issue is also out in stores right now. It was great talking to Erik, and what's so cool about Erik was how he broke into writing. You know, he started out writing for Shooting Star Comics Anthology, and now he's writing the biggest franchises at IDW. You know, everything from Ghostbusters, Transformers, to Godzilla, to name a few. And that's awesome. It really is. Now, and I've also mentioned that Erik was a guest on a couple of podcasts that I listened to prepare for this interview. He was on the Ghostbusters Resurrection podcast. That episode was Crossing Over with IDW's Erik Burnham and Tom Waltz episode. And also, Erik was also a guest on the Geek History Lesson podcast, episode 361, Godzilla with Erik Burnham. So if you guys get a chance, please check them out. It was a lot of fun listening to those episodes. It was really great. And also, too, please check out Erik's own podcast, the Friendly Neighborhood Webhead Podcast. It's a pretty cool podcast. So again, please check that out as well. Now, I want to say, mahalo or thank you in Hawaiian, to a few people who made this episode possible. First off, I want to thank Tom Waltz and Megan Brown of IDW and the Toho Corporation for letting me do an interview with Erik. So, Tom and Megan, thank you very much. And I want to thank Erik for his time. Erik, thank you very much. It was so cool talking to you about Godzilla. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Drew, the co-host for Comics for Fun and Profit, for letting me contribute to his podcast. And Drew, thank you very much. Drew does all the heavy lifting behind the scenes in putting this episode together. So Drew, thank you very much. And if you are a new listener to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast, please check out their weekly episode that comes out every Saturday. Drew and Kyle do spec picks of new releases that comes out every Tuesday and Wednesday. So if you guys get a chance, please check out the Comics for Fun and Profit episodes. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to you, the listeners, for your time, and thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.